doggy. Show 200. What? Probably 189 too many? Sound good, Jerk?
No, not a fan.
All right. How many wins they get this week, right? 2?
Yeah.
In this economy?
I know, right?
Fuck, run it. Hey now, boys and girls. That is so not the right screen. I can tell right now. Like we're already like off the rails. It's gonna be a fantabulous show. It's gonna be fantabulous. Even though I dropped this shit in early. There we go. Episode 200, baby. December 3rd, 2023. Episode 200. I'm going to talk about the first 12 games versus the last 12, even though tonight was 25th. A little bit of Blackwood versus Kahkonen, but of course, we are always going to welcome you back to another episode of the Pucknologists, your only completely live, unfiltered, unedited, uncensored, commercial-free San Jose Sharks podcast, wrapping up the week in Sharks hockey, a proud part of Teal Town, USA. Remember, keep us commercial-free. You can use that super chat option during the live shows. Better yet, hit us up on Venmo. You can find us at Teal Town USA. Nobody wants to crowbar in any advertisements, so this is what we do. If this is your first time checking out our cast, remember to subscribe on the platform of your choice. Leave your takes in the comments section if you're not with us live. But if you need that 24/7 fix of the Sharks talk, you can hit up the Jerkman on the Tweety at hockey_jerk to score your very own Discord invitation. And remember, this season, every episode of the Pucknologists, we're giving away prizes, so pay attention. And also, hey, you're on iTunes? Dude, I couldn't go this entire week without hearing about Spotify Wrapped this and blah, blah, blah. So, hey, man, if you got us on iTunes or Spotify, do us a favor. Throw us 5 stars. Leave us a, solid review. We'd appreciate it, man. So, Bro Ham. Quite the interesting way to run out the week. I mean, it is a Pucknologist takeover of After Dark, so of course we talk about the game you just saw. I mean, the Sharks take a 1-0 lead. They have a 2-1 lead, aren't able to figure either of those things out. And then, after being down 5-3, get a little nuts and end up being down 6-5. You have to say, it was some entertaining hockey tonight.
Yeah, I mean, definitely considering they were going up against the Rangers, arguably the best team in the Eastern Conference. The fact that they had hung in there as long as they did, I was very impressed.
The fact that the Sharks have been out there, since the game against Boston. And when was that? That was Thursday, right? So they flew out on Wednesday, played Boston on Thursday, played Boston on Wednesday, played Jersey on Thursday. I'm totally off. I'm sorry. Flew out Wednesday, played Boston Thursday, New Jersey Friday, had yesterday off, then played. I get so confused when the Sharks don't play Saturday. But they play...
Or Tuesday.
Right? But they play the Rangers tonight. Meanwhile, the Rangers played last night in Nashville. So it's like the Sharks, the fact that they'd been out there for a few days, they had yesterday off. Meanwhile, the Rangers had to travel. I mean, not the worst game I've ever seen.
No, I mean, like I said, they opened the scoring, and especially in the first period, like to come away after the first period only being down by 1 and having scored 2 goals, I thought that was as close as the Sharks could get to a win without actually winning, right? And
dude, the first period was a riot. 5 goals in 1 period. You're like, whoa, hey, wait, what?
That's what I'm saying, and regardless of the outcome, I legitimately was very happy with the way the Sharks played today. Like, they hung around. Aside from very early in the first period, they didn't have the lead all that much. So to not go away despite the fact that they were mostly behind, I found that to be really impressive, and I think it's something that moving forward, hopefully they're going to be able to continue to play that way. Maybe it gets them some more wins. I know we don't really want wins this year, but you got to move forward at some point, like we always say.
Well, we've been talking about it this whole season. I think Ian's been flying the flag. It's like, look, go ahead, lose all the games you want to lose, but at least entertain me. And tonight was one of those entertaining games.
Right.
Despite giving Breadman a hat trick.
And that's the thing is he's been one of the, specifically Panarin, he's been one of the most consistent and probably one of the best players in the NHL this year. So to see him get a hat trick, I was kind of like, well, you can only contain the best player in the league right now for so long.
Well, dude, see, and it's funny you say that. It's not like they gave up a hat trick to Ryan Lindgren or something,
Sure.
So I'm kind of like, if that's the guy who's going to get it, I can understand it. But yeah, the Sharks opened it up. Duclair less than 4 minutes in from Burrows, and right then you're starting to feel it because, look, over the last week and a half or so, dude, has it not been kind of the Cunnin, Duclair, Granlund show?
Pretty much, yeah. The fourth line has kind of been carrying the mail quite a bit for the Sharks going back the last month or so. So to see, offense from
what's that?
From the top end of the lineup is obviously been very encouraging, very nice to see, especially for some of these players that the Sharks maybe kind of are flirting with trading.
Well, the other thing, and then LeBanc getting an assist tonight. I think on the broadcast they said it's like Chief hasn't had a point in 16 games.
Yeah, it's been real brutal for him. Like the last couple of years were brutal. This one, I feel like he's despite his best efforts, he's found a new level of brutality.
But no, I felt like tonight it was again, it goes back to the fact of, look, they lost, but God damn it, they weren't entertaining. Yeah, they pissed away a lead twice, but we are talking about the New York Rangers.
Right.
But and I will say there was shall we say, a little bit of a feistiness to the game tonight. There was,
there was some intensity, as they say.
Yeah, if you look at the penalties, it's San Jose took 4, New York took 2. I felt like there probably could have been a few more given out. There was definitely kind of an edge to it, but I liked what I saw. And again, it just goes back to the whole idea of, we know you're going to not be a very good team, but just don't go out there and shit the bed. And tonight, I was kind of like, you know what? I will take that loss looking at the way that they played. And how much did you love to see Barabanov coming back tonight?
Well, coming back, right? And then scoring,
Oh, dude, like off his knees there at the end.
Right. And that I was like, because again, like as you like the player, right? But then so many other reasons, like as we talked about a couple minutes ago, potentially a trade option going forward, but also somebody who was banged up and then comes back and makes an immediate impact, because you think back a couple seasons ago where Barabanov was hurt, and when he came back, it wasn't the smoothest kind of transition back into being a regular fixture of the lineup. So to come in, and it's only one game, who's to say what's going to happen down the road, but to come in and then immediately make that impact, right? It's positive encouragement no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah, well, the one thing I was kind of interested in, and I'll be the first to admit, like, I had a very full day today. There kind of a little bit of an important football game that I was also like paying attention to. Was there any word as to why Sturm missed the game today?
He was a little banged up last I saw.
Okay. That's fair. No problem. I was just wanting to know. I was like, I didn't hear anything. Now, granted, I really wasn't paying attention to the pregame or anything like that because, again, football was top of mind. But yeah, I was just kind of all right. Well, Panarin gets a hat trick, but I saw Sturm and Emberson are injured, and I kind of that was the thing that like put my cackles up, going, oh, whoa, 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 whoa! Like the Sturm, this has been your money guy in the dot for
Right.
for all season, and you go and look tonight. Zetterlund 1-for-1, Carpenter right at 50%. Where look, fourth line center, if he goes 50%, you're taking that as a win.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody. I mean, you want to be over 50%, but like you said, right? As long as you're not getting completely killed in the draw, like there is something positive to be taken away from that.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Mike Hoffman 1-for-4 in the circle. Now, granted, not his forte. We get it.
Not, yeah, I was gonna say not a center. So.
Yeah, not the guy that we're looking for in those situations.
Right.
And I see Puck Guy helping us out in the production truck. Thank you. Addison saying, we want to create an identity for ourselves and have other teams know that we aren't going to quit. That's a great line for tonight, because they very easily could have folded the tents at 5-3 going, well, you know what, boys, I guess it's not in the cards tonight, even though we had a 1-0 lead, a 2-1 lead, and then we looked up 5 minutes later and all of a sudden we're down 5-3. But the fact that they came back and ends up being 6-5, and let's do it to the point where the Rangers had to like take a timeout there with a couple minutes left, going, wait, hey, whoa, slow your rolls, everybody.
Well, they were in danger. I don't know if you saw the meme that the Sharks Twitter account had posted after the Devils game, but they didn't want to be on the receiving end of that. So the Sharks bang in 2 quickies towards the end, and it's kind of like, okay, we got to calm down. We don't want to get embarrassed too much here.
And let's see, Zetterlund saying good push at the end, not good enough.
Yeah, which, I mean, happens, right? Like you still need to make growth, right?
Absolutely. But we've belabored the point since the beginning of the season. Is one of the things that the Sharks just are going to have to fucking figure out if they want to be a successful hockey team and bring home a W, is the fact that they can't get beat on the shot counter. And
right.
Tonight, it was 15-9 in the first, 14-9 in the second. They won it in the third, 10-7. That being said, they were, at that point they were having to try to come back. But still, it's just ends up being 36-28. And the faceoff percentage, they got owned almost, 54-46. But the power play, they did go 1-for-2. The power play this week over the last 5 or 6 games, if I remember correctly, the Sharks, that has been their one saving grace. It's been the thing that has actually kept them in a game or two. It's actually one of the things that I would say helped them win the game last Monday against Washington, is the fact that they were able to manufacture a goal on the power play.
Yeah, I mean, against the Bruins, not so great, but I didn't think that game in general was very good. But
the goal, the game where they didn't score any? Yeah.
Right. But even when it hasn't scored, the power play has gotten better looks as the season has gone on, and especially tonight, like 1-for-2. But that's something you can build off of, and it's something that you can also track from game to game, where the Sharks, they do, I mean, it's not a secret, struggle at 5 versus 5. And so if you can kind of dial in your power play, that's going to be a way where you can get more goals down the road, and maybe it gives you a chance to win. And, especially tonight, McDonald's goal in the power play, which, side note, McDonald scoring, hello?
Dude, he's all over the place right now.
It tied the game 3-3 on the power play. And so you kind of think, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe there's a path forward where the Sharks can win this game.
And the fact that, I mean, last time I looked, you put 20 guys out there, right?
At last check, yes.
Yeah. 12 of them came away with a point. I mean, it's
kind of hard to complain about that.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, good Lord. How do you complain about the fact where it's like 12 of your guys are coming away with a point, where you've got, on the back end, Ruda, Addison, McDonald, Burrows, 4 of your 6 come away with a point? You kind of go, like how do you not look at that and go, that's a positive step forward versus, oh shit, it's not Eklund and Hertl and Hoffman, and everybody else is a a -2. So at least it's being spread around.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what you need when you're a rebuilding team, right? You want it to be spread around as much as possible, because then, and we're still ways away, right? But you can go into the offseason and you can say, okay, let's look at everybody, what they all did. Is this somebody we want to keep around, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, not to say that I necessarily subscribe to the idea of moving a defenseman to forward, but with Jacob McDonald, I mean, we talked about last year how he was like really not all that great defensively, and he's been moved to forward. He's got 3 goals, and all of a sudden, who knows if that's going to be a permanent move, right? But that could easily be something for him to point to and be like, hey, like, you were going to get rid of me, but like now you can't because I'm playing well for you,
Well, and it's like you look at Jacob McDonald. Like, Chief only had 10 minutes tonight.
Mm-hmm. Making the most of it.
Fucker scored. It's like, hey now, power play goal. What's up, bitches? Like this looks to be like the new power play quarterback for the Sharks at this point.
Appears that way, yeah.
Oh, dude. Getting to Puck Guy there in the chat. From Zetterlin on chemistry with Granlund and Duclair. We have great speed. Granny likes to give great passes to me and Duke.
There you go.
Dude, I mean, isn't that all you're looking for?
Right. So, I mean, yeah, you want, I know we've made the point where, goals are better than scoring chances, of course, but if you're not getting scoring chances, then you're really not doing anything. So to build that foundation, you know what I mean? Like you'd be hard pressed to find something to complain about specifically with tonight.
Yeah, this is one of those games that if you're a Sharks fan rooting for draft lottery odds, you're like, okay, I like what you're doing, but okay, all right, you did it. You did, like you were entertaining. You put up some offense and whatnot, but you lost, which is what we're really looking for this season.
Right. This is like, the sort of the action plan that all of us have been talking about for the last couple of years of who cares if you lose, just be fun, to your point. Like, this is, to the letter, that plan in action. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, and 13 goals in 4 games?
Right. Well, I wish some of them were on home ice, but whatever.
Two of them.
Yeah.
The fact that they have, I mean, let's be honest, dude. They went how many road games without being able to ever score more than 1?
Well, let's walk before we can run here. How many road games have they been able to win in prior to this week?
Well, yeah, 0, of course.
Right.
But you get what I'm saying? It's like all of a sudden they've been like, oh, wait a minute. We're allowed to score more than 1 on the road?
Right.
Like, that's fantastic. How cool is that?
So you're saying?
So, I mean, dude, it was 11 goals in 2 road games? And somehow they still went 1-1? Show me a team who pulls that off.
Well, if you recall, about a month ago, the Sharks were, there was a week where the Sharks were averaging 11 goals a game. So, against, might I add.
Yeah.
So, the way, and obviously it's going to be touched on as we get into the more regular version of tonight's show, but all of a sudden the Sharks don't look that terrible.
Yeah, they're not horrible. Well, not only do they not look that horrible, Anaheim looks atrocious.
Yeah, but
Dude, I mean, what are they on? Like a 9-game skid?
Yeah, after they had won something like that 6 or 7 in a row to start the season. So,
yikes.
I don't know. Like, you mentioned Anaheim. Like, that's the one where I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it's about time they're doing what we thought.
All right, let's get a couple more comments out of the room post-game from David Quinn. Just the way we stuck with it for 60 minutes is great. Not the result we want, but the mental toughness and resolve makes you feel good. Absolutely. Totally agree there. Also from Quinn says, Sturm and Emberson, Lower body injuries found out after pregame skate. They're staying on the trip, but no timeline. I mean, holy crap. That is one thing that maybe, I don't know, is being talked about as much as it should, is the absolute revolving door of injuries the Sharks have had to deal with since day one.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, when they put out the list of games lost to injury, I'd be curious to know where the Sharks end up on that list.
It's
Because
got to be top 10.
Yeah, I would go a step further. I would say top 5, maybe even top 3,
Ooh.
just because I mean, Couture hasn't played it all this season, so
Who?
that's a running counter. But just like you said, it seems like every time somebody's healthy, another guy goes down, right?
Yeah.
Benning, when Benning came back, Ruta went on the IR. Now Ruta's on the IR. Emberson's hurt, and it's the same thing with the forwards. Like Kahkonen and Zadina are banged up right around the time that Barabanov comes back.
Right?
They've been chasing it all year. Granlund was hurt at one point. Sturm was, not an injury, but was on personal leave. Like it's the medical staff has been getting their due plus some this season, to say the least.
And let me ask you this. I want to say this is a guy who I don't think is getting any of the cookies that, like, you talk about last man to the doggy bowl. Ryan Carpenter.
Yeah, he's played well.
Like, since he's come in, could you ask any more of him?
No, and that's the thing. Like, I would even argue he's doing more than has been asked, right? Just because he was penciled in for the Barracuda, maybe would be the shuttle guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's not the best on faceoffs this year, but even then, 47% is not terrible. He's not
tonight,
getting killed
50%.
Right, he's not getting killed defensively. He's taking shots, in kind of, he's got more takeaways than giveaways, which is what you need at that level of the lineup. So for what's being asked of him, which is admittedly not all that much, he's still playing very well, and I think is exceeding expectations.
And had what could have been the go-ahead goal.
Yeah.
Thank you, Puck Guy, for adding some more takes from the locker room from tonight's tilt against the Rangers and the Sharks. From David Quinn, just the turnovers are frustrating in critical areas. We got to finish our tracking and back checks. We need to finish our second and third efforts. We left too much to chance. I got to say, I'm getting a little tired of hearing Quinn talking about turnovers.
Yeah, I agree.
It's when do we get to that point where the Sharks start to own that neutral zone a little bit better? And you look at that last goal that was given up to, I think it was Condre Miller. It was just like turnover, bingo. And you're just going, oh, come on, guys. All you got to do is clear the zone in that situation. Also from David Quinn from tonight saying, taking 3 penalties in the first period put us behind the 8 ball. It did, but let's call it what it is. At the 12-minute mark, Ryan Carpenter gave you a 2-1 lead. So yeah, there was some penalties early, but the San Jose McDonald takes a high sticking penalty at 5:49. Eklund takes a hook, 7:55. But after both of those are already in the bag, you still have a 2-1 lead. But then towards the end of the period, Carpy takes a holding against Panarin. I just look and I go, oh man, like, okay, you might want to sit there and talk about penalties in the first period not doing you right, but facts matter. 2 of those penalties happened. You still had the lead after them.
Well, yeah, and I would agree with that too. I don't know how you can say that puts you behind the 8 ball, which to your point, all 3 of the Rangers power plays were in the first period. Only one of them was scored on. And from that point on, and I know this is not how the game is played, obviously, but if you erase the first period, which had the penalties that killed you, right?
Yep.
the score was 3-3 if you erase the third period. So I don't know how you can say that 3 power plays for the Rangers killed you when after they were all killed off, the game was pretty even score-wise.
Absolutely.
So that almost seems like
a little bit of a cop-out?
Not necessarily a cop-out, but more of just like a kind of maybe poking at the defensive side of things, right? Where it's like, hey, like, we can't be taking penalties. We need to tighten things up. But I don't know, just kind of a weird sort of stance to take. But I mean, whatever.
Interesting hill to die on.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, from Quinn out of the locker room tonight versus the Rangers, we're playing much better hockey. We've had a lot of adversity this year. I've said this a lot. No one has gone through more. Give our guys credit. We had a chance late.
Yeah.
Nobody's gone through more.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. Have you talked to all 31 other teams? But look, a 6-5 loss. Yes, let's be honest, dude. When they were down a couple towards the end, I'm like, okay, like just sticking a fork in them. They're done. Right. When it was like 6-3, and I'm like, and it's over. And then
I was expecting, as soon as it was 6-3, I was expecting the Skype call to come through.
Oh, dude, absolutely. Like, okay, it's over. And then to see the Sharks come back and within 90 seconds put 2 more on the board and make shit interesting enough to the Rangers were forced to call a timeout and go, somebody had to tell the team, guys, we're playing the Sharks. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And everybody went, oh, yeah, okay, we got this. So, anyway, I mean, it goes back to what we've been saying since the beginning. Look, just don't be a doormat. Don't get completely walked over. Be entertaining. Show us something. You don't have to win every game, but in some of your losses, we don't need to see back-to-back 10-1, 10-2 losses.
Right.
Be entertaining.
I've heard that losing 10-0 2 games in a row is not good for morale.
I mean, I've heard this, can neither confirm nor deny. And Blackwood, I mean, God love this guy. And we're going to get into him and Kahkonen in a little bit, but .833 save percentage tonight. And even the broadcast was kind of lamenting like that's a puck that should never see Blackwood.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to give it up to him because this Sharks team is on pace to set a ridiculous record for shots allowed, chances given up. I mean, it's insane right now.
Well, I'll tell you this, and if you are if you're one who likes to dabble in wagering on sports, I've yet to lose money from betting on Blackwood to make X amount of saves. So it's yes, right. So it's if you wanted to find a positive out of this whole thing they're calling a season,
dude,
something to think about. I mean, it's the same as like a little bit, right? Where it's like I always go back to Mike Smith when he was on the Arizona Coyotes. He pretty regularly had a really good save percentage, 910, 915, 920.
Mm-hmm.
But his goals against average was like almost 5 because the Yotes just allowed so many shots. Where like, he would allow so much, but it was like he's still getting a bunch of saves.
Yeah, and that's something that we're going to get into, where it's like, it says it in the scroll right now, before tonight, even though Blackwood's 1-3-1, he has a 909.
Right.
And a 2.82. And you're like, those are really good fucking numbers.
If I was a team, making a deep playoff run and my goalie, gave me what Blackwood gave the Sharks this week, like I would be like, all right, I'm not even looking at the goalie because we're getting what we need, like.
Oh, dude, and that's what's like chapping my ass when I keep hearing these rumors about moving Blackwood, and I'm like, if Greer was to move Blackwood, dude, like everything you see behind me is coming off the wall. I'm done. I would be so chapped.
It would have to be a really tantalizing return.
Oh. Oh. Well, I'm just kind of like, what for you? What is it like? Swayman has to be like part of it.
I mean, well, if you're just gonna make shit up, then yeah,
That's what I'm
sure.
saying.
But
Well, you think people aren't making shit up with these silly rumors?
well, I don't think anything is silly. I think I think a good GM kind of pokes around everything, right? And if a team really felt, I mean, especially like Blackwood, he's got team control, right? For at least one more year after this year. So if you and Edmonton was a good example that we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, whichever it was. If you think your team is in shambles in net, why not take a chance on a guy who has been playing very well this season? The only thing to consider is it's going to cost something because he's been playing well this season,
I'm telling
I don't
you.
think anything. I think where the Sharks are at right now, I don't think anything should be off the table, and that's
Well-
kind of, I'm sure there's going to be commentary about that.
Well, we're going to talk about it a little bit because Elliot Friedman said something similar to the effect just regarding the blue line, but
Sure.
I'm totally with you on that. Over this week, as we kind of dip away from Rangers Sharks, and for those of you who were at the game and everything, I hope you had a great time. It was certainly something to enjoy. You didn't, it certainly wasn't the Boston game. It certainly wasn't those back-to-back 10-goal given up games. So you saw something that was, I would say, pretty goddamn entertaining. But you know what else was entertaining this week? Again, Sharks threw up 13 goals in 4 games this week. Still went 2-2, but you have to appreciate that, especially when you go back to, what was it? Over the first 12 games of the season, the Sharks played, 7 on the road and had 5 goals? So
yeah.
so you have that. You start the week where Tomas Hertl's out for a game because kidney stones, from what I understand. Not the most stress-free thing to deal with.
Yeah, as I've never had them myself, but I know I believe our colleague Mark.
Yeah.
He had indicated that he had one, and I know a couple people that have had them too. And it's one of those things where you don't, from what I understand, you don't give it much thought until you have it.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I feel your pain.
Yeah. You're kind of, laying on the bathroom floor, like just ready to,
up.
Yeah, ready to just give up.
Let me ask you about this. Dude, Justin Bailey. I know there was a lot of talk about the beginning of the season. I know Ian mentioned it when Justin Bailey got the call up, and it was like, sure, call up this guy, even though Gushkin is like right there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to say, dude, over the games that Bailey has played, didn't play tonight, but bro, big boy who is doing all the right things.
Right. Well, and
not a liability.
No, and I think it's the same as Ryan Carpenter that we talked about a couple of minutes ago, where expected to be a Barracuda guy. Maybe he rides the shuttle back and forth, right? But he's come in, he's gotten points. I mean, he's got 2 assists, right? And, I just, he's kind of like the, the perfect guy, at least up to this point, right? Where he's playing well defensively. He's not taking penalties, which is awesome.
And I'm sorry, did I say he didn't play tonight? Which, in fact, he did. That was my bad.
Okay. He's been, considering, again, we go back to what's being asked of someone. To your point, I thought he's played very well since coming into the lineup. He's, like I said, he's not causing the Sharks any grief. He's not making them rethink the decision to call him up.
Yeah, we're not sitting here going, "Oh my God, Gushkin was there. What the fuck are you doing?" Like, no, he's looked good, and it's one of those things where, and you've said it before, it's like, I had my guy. Like,
right.
He's out there and he's doing what he's supposed to do. Which, I don't know, is that called the anti-LeBanc?
Right.
Dude, all this Vlasic scratching is making me itch.
Yeah, I know that you've in years past you've kind of said on a pretty much weekly basis that like you're dying for it to get to this point.
I have
And
like let him be the highest paid seventh defenseman in the league.
right. And the thing is, like never did I disagree with what you were saying, but I didn't think it was gonna get to this point,
And yet here we are.
Right. Like I thought like just based on whatever you want to say, logic, loyalty, you know, roster configuration, whatever you want to call it. I didn't think Vlasic was going to be the guy who rotates in and out and is sitting in the press box more often than not. Like, and I think I like it and I don't. Right? I like it because again, you're putting the keys into the hands of people who you want to be part of your future. Right? But at the same time, being a high paid player, and I don't think this is a Vlasic specific thing. I think it speaks to anybody who would be in that position. Having a high paid player kind of on the in the press box, right? You always run the risk of ruining the relationship. You know what I mean?
I mean, yes. But it just for me it just comes down to like, dude, the young guys is like at one point, Vlasic, when you came up, you played somebody else out of a their position, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're getting played out of yours.
I mean, it's definitely circle of life, right? I just didn't. I just didn't think that.
Hey, yeah, yeah.
I didn't think he was gonna crater this fast.
dude, dude, and dude, now I'm not trying to be a dick. Do you think maybe just a scotch? And if you think I'm talking completely out of school, that's fine. Call me out on it. Do you also think that maybe part of it is just kind of like, you know what? I'm Mark Edward Vlasic. I came in here. I wrecked shop for a really good amount of time, yet was completely underpaid. You talk to anybody, I was underpaid like a motherfucker. I was shutting down people left and right. We played Peter Forsberg or this guy, and nobody fucking put points up when I was on the ice. And now it's just kind of like Doug Wilson handed him his bag and said, yes, I recognize you were underpaid. Now I'm going to give you the bag. And now we're kind of at this point where Vlasic is just kind of like, well, look, I'm never going to get traded to the Canadiens, the team that I totally wish I was playing for. So I'm just going to sit home and count my money and play with my dogs. And, look, I'm out of here in a couple of years. Whatever happened, going to happen. Either way, I got my money. I'm like, it just, I don't know. Is it a lack of motivation? Like, what is it? Because Quinn is saying, I need you to think the game just a little bit faster. I need you to react just a little bit quicker. And the proof is in the pudding. I've lost count now. Is this like the 7th scratch in 8 games? 6th and 7? I don't know at this point. I've lost count.
Right. I mean, it's to the point where now, the Sharks have played 25 games this year. Like we're pretty much creeping up on the point where he'll have only skated in half of them,
Yeah.
Like that's how long he's been how many times he's been scratched this season. I don't, to your point about what you think might be the reason. I don't know that I want to speculate just because I don't know, but I do wonder
Say it.
I wonder if it's just like, I don't know that it's necessarily one thing, right? Like I really truly think it could be any number of things, right? It could be a physical health thing, it could be a mental health thing, it could be a personal issue thing, it could be a professional issue thing, like it could be any number of things. And so I don't know that I necessarily want to kind of pigeonhole myself into one reason, because I wouldn't be surprised if it's multiple reasons all kind of thrown together,
And it makes you wonder if some of it is personal. And I'm not going to be the person that sits here and talks about his personal life. If you want to find out about that, there are plenty of other avenues to do it. But who knows? It just makes me wonder. Like, man, he was just such a huge name for the Sharks. And I will say an unheralded name, a guy who did not get the cookies when he probably should have.
Right.
So either way, I hope he's able to figure it out and be a large part of this team because, after this season, he's still on contract for another 2 seasons. And if somebody says buyout to me, get away from me.
Well, and I agree, and I would agree with that completely. Like whatever your thoughts are about how he's played the last 4 or 5 years, like I genuinely like the person and the player, like to your point, was an important piece of the team for a long time. And so to kind of, I don't know, like I definitely think if a guy is not helping the team, yeah, you have to call that out. But to completely turn on the person just because of age catching up, like I don't know that that's a fair criticism.
Yeah. You want to know who age never catches up to? Joe Pavelski.
Oh, weird. I didn't know he still played for this team.
Yeah. Anyway, who fell victim to this defensive train being way over capacity to the point where the fire marshals are coming in going, yeah, too many people in here. We got to clear shit out. Nikolai Knizhov got waived yesterday, thankfully cleared today. So he'll be back down with the CUDA. Now, that being said, Elliot Friedman spoke on whatever he speaks on. Like at this point, I just can't keep track anymore. So there's Overdrive, there's TSN, there's this, and I'm like, I can't be bothered to keep track. All I know is the quote was basically Elliot Friedman saying the Sharks are everybody is on the table from the blue line, including Mario Ferraro. But I sit there and I go, man, how happy are you? Are you like, are you joining me in the party to be like, Knizhov cleared, yay? I was super happy. I totally thought somebody was going to take a bite.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth, right? Because on the one hand, like he wasn't, like he was obviously waived for a reason, right? And that is
D train's over capacity.
Well, I think it's a bit more than that. I think it's pretty obvious. As much as I would like him to play, well and establish himself as aside from the pack, he hasn't done that as much as I would love for him to. And so I think this is, throwing him on waivers is kind of, it's an opportunity where you can say, hey, if another team claims you, you'll get a chance to do well with them. And if you don't get claimed, you can play with the Barracuda, take a chance on yourself and see if you can't kind of rebuild your image and come back up. Because the thing is, like, I don't think putting Knizhov on waivers to send him to the Barracuda, I don't think that's them admitting, oh, this guy sucks, we want to get rid of him.
Not at all. I think we're over capacity.
It's personnel, to your point, and I think it's also just, hey, you know what? Like, you've not given us your best hockey. Go to the Barracuda, work on the fundamentals, and then get better. And then when we have room for you, you'll be back up.
Or when the inevitable injury happens, it seems to be a big thing for this season. So, man. All right, let's just kind of run down what happened this week. So, the Sharks pick up that win versus Washington. Ovechkin doesn't see the score sheet, which, of course, we all love, even though he grew up saying that, the Sharks were his favorite team. Love that. It was all about the power play in this one because the Sharks actually scored and Blackwood stood on his head. And with that, the Sharks were like 5-1-1 at SAP. Like, if you remember last season, Sharks only had 8 wins at home. So it's like, good Lord.
Right.
And a suddenly hot power play showing up with Blackwood standing on his head delivers you a 2-1 win. Now, all that being said, run it back a week or so. My man Hockey Jerk up in here saying, yeah, the Capitals, I'm not worried.
That does sound like a thing I would say.
Yeah. So they walked away with that 2-1 victory. Then you've got Boston, that first game. Look, the Sharks had to travel, and it is what it is. The fun thing about this, of course, being that was the 18th anniversary to the day that the Sharks traded Brad Stewart. Hold on, don't tell me. Wayne Primo, Oh, who was the third guy? Stewart? Was it Wayne Primo? Was it Marco? Oh, Marco Sturm, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for Joe Thornton.
I've
So
heard that guy's good.
I'm sorry?
I've heard that he's good.
18 years to the day, and they play in Boston. I thought that was great, but that was a game. Hertl did return for being out for that game for the kidney stones. Like I said, Vlasic scratched for the 6th time in 7 games. But this one, I mean, the broadcast was lamenting about it. It's like no shots, no urgency, particularly on the fact that they had a full 2-minute 5-on-3 power play and had nothing. Like they were saying, it's like, Jesus Christ, are we watching the Sharks or the CUDA right now? And the Sharks would give up yet another early goal, and that is something we're tracking. We'll probably talk about a little bit later, where the first 3 and the last 3 minutes of a period have been a harbinger of doom for the Sharks a lot of this season. So it ends up being another road loss, and through then, 6 total goals. You're like, Christ almighty. But then what happens? Head over to New Jersey, boom, 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 in one game, 6 goals. All of a sudden they've, doubled their amount of road goals. Your man, Timo Meyer, the guy that we're going to spend the next 10 years looking for, did not make the score sheet, bro.
Yeah, I think, nobody's going to, I don't think anybody's going to admit to this, but I think this game in particular, I think was really important to win, more so than was being led on, just because you think, I mean, especially from the perspective of, and I'm not saying this as a way to like vilify the Devils or anything, because I think everybody would have done the same thing. But in the case of Zetterlund and in the case of Ohotiuk, like you're ostensibly given up on in favor of somebody who's better, and so it kind of puts a little bit of sugar in your coffee to kind of make an impact, right? And then especially with Blackwood, that is a situation where he was legitimately given up on, and obviously there were factors, and that's another podcast.
Factors?
That's another podcast topic on its own. But the Devils gave up on Blackwood, gave him away for practically nothing. And the thing is, like, the Sharks acquired Blackwood, I believe it was for a 6th-round pick, and in the 18 games that he's played, I already think you could get more for him if you decided to flip him, so.
Oh, absolutely. But let's revisit that for a second, right?
Okay.
So it's New Jersey getting,
okay, wow, he's got graphics.
New Jersey getting Timo, 50% retained, which, let's be honest, in the season means nothing. It's final year of his deal. Who gives a shit, right?
Yeah, sure.
So
if the Sharks could retain 100%, I bet they would have.
Oh, dude. And I would have fully supported it.
Yeah.
But the Sharks also moved Scott Harrington, which, wasn't
no longer there.
Yeah, no, and again, not doing much for San Jose. Abragamov, not doing anything. A player called Hataka, whatever. That was a player that we both liked, but again, too many seats taken on the D train, right?
Right.
And then Zachary Iman, who I think, we were kind of like, oh, I hope something. Oh, wow, I couldn't even get that sentence out before he shit the bed.
Right.
And then a 2024 5th. Meanwhile, the Sharks get Andres Johnson. He's not here anymore.
Not even in the NHL anymore.
Yeah, and I feel like, was that a cap dump for New Jersey?
Yeah.
Ostensibly?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the picks that we're really concerned about? Zetterlund. Oh, Chief just happens to lead the Sharks in goals right now.
Yeah.
After 25 games.
Yeah, all of the sudden, right?
Yeah. Shakira Mukhamadullin obviously hasn't been up with the big squad, but
he's not there yet.
Yeah, he's not there yet. Needs a little time to marinate, but you go, how old is he? 23?
Right.
And so, yeah, give him a year or so. Let him marinate. He's definitely a part of the future I think we're all hoping for. Then you've got a Kokchuk who, let's be honest, dude, early on, I was very kind of like maybe he should be marinating a little bit. And then, I go and look at the stats like over the last 12 games, and he's like the point leader on the blue line.
Right.
So you're like, oh, okay, and I don't even give a shit when they throw up the pairings during the beginning of a game where it's like Ferraro, Emberson, Addison, Benning, Okachuk and Burrows. I don't care. You have him playing on the bottom pair. You know what? He's contributing more than anybody else right now.
Right.
And then you get that 23 first and then a conditional pick next season along with the 7th rounder. So looking at this, and again, I know it's pinned on your profile. The Sharks are going to spend the next 10 years looking for the next Timo. Right now, you have to look at this trade. And for the Sharks' point of view, when you look at the roadmap, you have to be pretty excited. Like, are you looking at this saying, big money Mike, motherfucker?
Yeah, well, and when we did our show, in response to the Erik Karlsson trade, which was
Who?
just about 4 months ago, I had said, and you had kind of agreed with me that even at that point, it had been 6 months since the trade had come down. Even at that point, like the revisionist sort of lens, kind of
my favorite lens.
Yeah, it sort of kind of it softened the landing a little bit, I would say. I believe I said something to the extent of this trade's not as bad as I made it out to seem on that podcast. And I think you could even take it a step further now that, obviously that 2023 first round pick, we know who was taken with that pick. And there's obviously a lot of optimism surrounding him. It's Quentin Musty, by the way.
I was going to say that you talk about an amazing amount of optimism. Didn't Chief have 5 goals and 4 assists in 2 games this past week?
Right. And specifically with Musty is one of those guys where you wish that there was some kind of special protocol for petitioning. So when you're a Canadian junior player, you can't go to the AHL until you're 20. And I feel like Musty is one of those guys where you just wish there was some kind of petition that you could send in, right?
Dude, I might be on record right now saying, you know what, I might have to, you and I might have to put down a fin if you want to take Will Smith between now and 5 years from today. I might say Musty has more points than Smith.
I'm not ready to say that.
Okay.
But going back to it, obviously, yes, Musty, we know that 2nd round pick. I mean, even if it ends up staying a 2nd round pick, you'll take that every day of the week. Just the fact that it can become a first, I think, is encouraging. A Hertl, there's a lot of room to grow there, but I think he's played as well as he could. Mukhamadullin is just, it's an egg. Mukhamadullin is an egg, and the Sharks are sitting on him right now, and it's fine.
That's exactly what you want. Don't throw him out there before he's ready.
Yeah, and Zetterlund, I'm, that, during the offseason, I was probably one of Zetterlund's few remaining fans, and
I was one of his biggest critics.
Right, and now the shoe is kind of the other foot. Where to your point, he's been, in terms of goal scoring and consistency, he's probably been the best player this year for the Sharks.
Absolutely. Dude, so you should have saw me the way that I was feeling tonight when they threw up the lines for the game between the Sharks and the Rangers. When I saw that Hoffman was on the 4th line, I almost flipped my fucking lid.
Yeah.
I was like, why the fuck is Hoffman on the 4th line, you stupid sons of bitches?
And, obviously, there's still a lot of runway, right, to know for sure. But the pinned tweet that you're alluding to about the Sharks spending 10 years looking for the next Timo Meier, maybe it only took him 6 months to find him.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Maybe his name is Quentin Musty.
Hey, now. And, Sharks, Jewels, Musty had another 2-point night tonight and has been on fire. He just keeps taking penalties. Well, you know what? That reminds me of a guy that I think we were just talking about.
Yeah, and
Timo Meier. It would take too many penalties. He got that shit out of his system, and look what happened after that.
Well, and that's the thing, and I think those listening who watched the Barracuda in 2017 when they went to the Western Conference Final, they remember it was death, taxes, and Timo Meier minor penalty. And to your point, every season, so every subsequent season that has gone on, he's dialed in the penalty minutes where like just the nature of his game being a power forward, like you're going to take more penalties than a sniper, right?
Sure.
But as long as they're, if you want to call them smart penalties, right? They're not penalties that are going to kill you, right? Like it's one thing if you like slash a guy or you board a guy or you cross check a guy, like that's a dumb penalty. But if you're battling for the puck and guy falls over and you get a penalty, I think you just take it because you're battling,
That too, and not lazy penalties.
Right.
The hooks, the delay of games, all that type of shit. So
yeah, I especially as an 18-year-old, like there's so much runway to work on that.
Oh, absolutely. But this game, to put a bow on Jersey, dude, Granlund, who is a guy that I have like not been happy with through the first 20 games.
All of a sudden, man.
Yeah, dude. 3-point night.
Answer this for me. When the TL Town Live about Erik Karlsson getting traded, when that was happening,
you think I remember that? But go ahead.
I seem to remember, and I know Kevin Lacey's going to back me up on this. I seem to remember a certain co-host who was kind of saying maybe with Granlund you rebuild that image and you get a draft pick or you get a quality player, and I don't know. I mean, look, like you can't just ignore the first fucking however many 10 games, 15 games of the season. But all of the sudden, what if I told you Granlund was second on the team in points?
Well, not only that, the fact that it seems like through the first 15 games, there just seemed to be that whole idea of the fact that it was a lot of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly Grandin and Duclair have kind of like unlocked the box.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh man, where did this come from? How fun is this to watch?
Hey, speaking of Duclair, I did want to point it out as well.
Duclair!
I don't know if you saw, but the zero bump or hero bump, whichever you want to call it, has made its return. I don't know if you happen to notice that or not, but and you can go back and listen to last week's podcast. There is audio evidence of us giving Duclair the zero and saying, hey, we need more goals from you, guy.
Yeah, man.
And 4 games this week, he had 3 goals. So the zero bump lives on.
I don't know that we get enough credit for the bump.
I like to think that, when the Sharks, they're standing in the locker room kind of waiting, and then you hear that, bam, 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 you hear that, and they start walking out of the
Before
thing.
they leave the bot. Hold on, what did AJ and Jerk say?
No, I like to think that, there's transcriptions of our zero bumps printed out and taped onto the wall, and they kind of, give them a tap as they go by kind of thing.
Oh, gotta love it.
And one of our buddies, I don't know if you saw the tweet, one of our buddies pointed out, like, hey, I think Duclair might have been listening to the podcast.
Yes, yeah, I saw it. That was awesome. And the other funny thing about the New Jersey game is the fact that it was the first game this season. There wasn't a single Shark that was a dash. Everybody was even or positive.
First road win of the season.
Right?
First no minus player game of the season.
Now, to be fair, and I know you hate that, but to be fair, aside from all of that, all the feels, what the hell was the shot on goal differential in that game again? It was like 47 to like 17 or something. And I forget who it was. There was somebody on Twitter that just had like attempts, and it was like 139 to 40.
Well, and you know what? Here's the other thing too. Going back to our conversation about the goalies, right? How valuable in a game like that is Blackwood?
Oh, huge. But Kahkonen is the one who started that game.
Right. And I think that's a larger commentary. Good point. That's a larger commentary on where the Sharks goaltending has been this year. Obviously, Blackwood has been the better of the two, but I don't really think that Kahkonen has been all that bad.
I would agree.
And I think, like, whichever team, like even the best teams, your Vegases and Tampa Bays and Colorados of the world, are going to have dud games, and you need your goalie to step up for you. And sometimes it works out to where you score 4 goals on 17 shots, and it just works.
Dude, well, I forget who I was watching that game with. They're like, oh, they're just trying to bury his GAA. It's fine. Well, okay.
Sure,
So,
buddy.
yeah. So we move on to the takeaways from this week. Of course, it's very quick. Look, versus Washington, it's a suddenly hot power play with a Blackwood shutdown performance. They get a victory. Boston, it's some travel. It's the first of a season long 6-game roadie. Again, no shots, no urgency, a completely wasted 2-minute power play with 5-on-3. That leads to getting, that loss. Then versus New Jersey, floodgates open, particularly for the second line. The funniest part, of course, being is that I was on the media call in the morning pre-New Jersey, and there was a Jersey guy, I shit you not, was asking about the health and when we could expect to see Alexander return. His name was not said as Barabanov. His name was spoken as Barabanov. And I was rolling. I'm like, that is the best pronunciation I've ever heard. Barabanov. So there we go. That is kind of the 4 games wrapped up in a nice, tidy little bow here. So that means it's time to move on to our hero and zero. Who is yours, good sir? And I kind of feel like there's really only maybe 2 choices.
So I've in past episodes, I've kind of taken the roundabout sort of 4-dimensional chess choice for these.
Yeah, do it again.
No, quite the opposite. I'm gonna take the low hanging fruit. It's Anthony Duclair.
Okay then.
I mean, 4 points in 4 games after a pretty brutal week before. I mean, I don't know how he could have responded any better short of tying the game tonight. Like,
right? And the fact that kind of a couple games before this week, he met with the media during postgame, and he was the first one to own it and say, look, you can say this guy didn't do this, this guy didn't do that. Look at my stat line. Did I do anything? No, I need to be better.
I love Duclair. He's a hell of a guy.
Oh, dude.
He's the, whatever ends up being the action plan for the Sharks, like, you just have to live with it, right? But if there's some kind of scenario where Duclair can resign, like, I'm hammering that narrative, because I just think.
Well, how old is he? Is he part of the roadmap?
I think he could be. I mean, he's not.
What is he, like 28, 29?
He's 20. Yeah, he's 28. He just turned 28 a couple months ago. So he kind of, if you go back to the point that I had made about the LA Kings rebuild, I don't even remember when I made the point, but it was like it was the whole thing of, like, you can rebuild, but hold on to certain players until you push through to the other side, right? Which is why, like, you think about when the Kings were rebuilding, like, they could have traded Kopitar, they could have traded Doughty, they could have traded Adrian Kempe, but they didn't.
Yeah, well, and trading any of those 3 guys would have really pissed off the fan base if they didn't get a Kings ransom in return.
Right, but you look at it now. You look at what's going on for the LA Kings now. Like, they're one of the best teams in the Western Conference.
Yeah, held on to the right cards.
Right, and so I think it's the same kind of thing where, Anthony Duclair as a 28-year-old pending unrestricted free agent, like, maybe it doesn't make sense, but maybe it does. Maybe you re-sign him to 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever, and then when he's 30, the Sharks are kind of kicking it into gear again, and he's in the prime of his career.
Well, I'm going to go my hero of the week. I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, like I said, I felt like 2 pieces kind of stood up from the crowd. You took obvious 1. I'm going to take obvious 1A and say and say Granlund.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he, like I said earlier, clearly finding some sort of chemistry with Duclair seems to be coming around for him, despite the who was the guy who was in Boston who was just like literally riding his back, no call.
I don't know who it
I was
was.
like, that couldn't have been McAvoy, would it? But just the fact that dude is riding him like a fucking hobby horse. No call, looks fine, it's all good, let her grow.
5 points in 4 games.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Like a couple of guys this week have finally, for whatever reason, it was, it's like they've been playing with the Rubik's Cube for 6 weeks and they finally got like a couple sides to line up in the same color.
Well, not only that, but the thing with Granlund that I really appreciate
It was McAvoy, thank you.
is you look at the stats from the 4 games this week. Granlund is flinging everything on the net, which, if you ask me, that's the right way to play because any shot can go in at any time.
Yeah, what do you got to lose?
Low-hanging fruit are still nutritious.
So on the 0 side of your column, who you eyeballing? Who you giving that horse side to?
Oh my lord.
Too many targets?
There's one target, but I don't know. For me, it's LeBanc. Like,
yeah,
just genuinely as a player, like I like the player, I like the skill set, right? But
dude, three assists in 18 games played, including tonight.
Right, and we've talked about it multiple times.
And Chief is in a contract year.
Yeah, that's the thing. We've talked about it multiple times this season, so it's not news. But coming off of an injury, coming off of inconsistent play, needing a contract, like this is the time.
Newly married, newly fathered.
Yeah, like there's a lot of things like lining up really well where there was some negativity. Maybe you can kind of move forward and push to the other side. And no, like that's quite the opposite is what's happening. Like it almost seems like when the game is on the line, when the pressure's at its highest, like he's actually gotten worse, which is really unfortunate to me because, like I said, I genuinely like the player. But
especially when you consider how many assists he had during games. Oh, wait, nope, we're not resetting the counter.
But like it's like he's gonna be like a year from now, like he's gonna be playing in Europe if he doesn't figure it out.
Well, I was gonna say I think we've mentioned this at least a couple times over the last month. I mean, what do you even put the odds on him skating in a teal jersey come next October?
Is there a number that's less than 0%?
Yeah, right. So, I mean, and I've got him on my list as well. But you took LeBanc. I respect that. Again, mine obvious choice, Vlasic, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just haven't been. You've played once in, I want to say, the last 8 games, and you have guys that are, 15, 16, 17, 18 years younger than you that are coming through. They're playing a little bit harder, a little bit faster, a little bit quicker. They're making decisions faster. Again, I don't know if it's Chief got his bag. I don't know what the motivation is here, but I would love to see Vlasic get back into the lineup just for the fact that we've seen him do amazing things, shut down top score. You play a guy like Connor McDavid, and Vlasic's like, yeah, I'm gonna, dude, like fucking flypaper. I'm gonna be all over his ass. Chief is not getting a point tonight. Like he would take that shit personally. Michael Jordan, I took that shit personally. A point of pride.
I love that quote,
dude. I loved it.
But I like that you mentioned Connor McDavid specifically, because if you remember that playoff series, Sharks Oilers, right?
Yeah.
A lot of that dialogue was how McDavid and Vlasic were going to be basically stapled to one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at after, the Sharks ended up losing that series. We understand that back in 2017, but in that series for McDavid to only have 4 points in 6 games. I know 99% of the NHL would love that stat line, but that is way, way, way below expectation for Connor McDavid. And I think that speaks to the defensive prowess that Vlasic had at one point.
Absolutely.
And things have gone, 100 miles in the other direction for him.
Yeah, and Molasses in the chat saying in LeBanc's defense, he really isn't on lines that are great, and I would say that I would agree with that if he was playing out of his mind, where it's obviously if you're playing on a shitty line and you're the great player, you're going to stand out. He's not standing out.
Well, and that's the thing is when he's gotten opportunities to play on those lines,
he's made the least of them.
Right. Whereas you recall a year ago, he had opportunities and played very well.
Mm-hmm.
And this year it's been the exact opposite. And I don't want to speculate because it could be any number of things, but it's very obvious to me that, a parting of the ways needs to
It's imminent.
happen.
Yeah. So the fun thing, and this is part of the thumbnail, is it's about the first 12 games versus the second 12 games. Obviously, tonight's game was number 25, but the first 12 games, I just want to point out a few things, and it really has become a tale of two seasons so far, even though we're just beyond the quarter pole. The fact that through the first 12 games, the Sharks forwards scored a total of 29 points.
Mm-hmm.
The last 12 games coming into the New York game, all of a sudden 29 to 59 points. Kaboom, like more than double the output. Defensively, in the first 12, the defense put up 9 points. In the last 12, they put up 19. Again, more than double. And the one that'll really bake your noodle, butter your toast, cream your crop. In the first 12 games, the Sharks were a collective -172. Run the numbers, okay?
That doesn't seem ideal.
Games 13 through 24, a collective -36. Now, that's not great, but it's leaps, bounds, galactic steps forward from -172. The first 12 games, Blackwood was 1-6-1 with an .892 save percentage. His goals against 4.27. In the last 12, coming into the New York game against the Rangers, Blackwood went from 1-6-1 to 2-4-1. So not a huge forward step, but save percentage goes from .892 to .915. That's epic. Huge. Goals against goes from 4.27 to 2.87. Huge step forward. First 12 games, Kahkonen goes 0-4-0. The last 12 games, he goes 3-2-0, a actual winning record. And from the first 12, he goes from an .876 to the last 12, a .912 save percentage. And his goals against goes from a 4.3 to a 370. So I will tell you that the funny thing about that is that if you look, Blackwood's wins, like total wins, are not as good as Kahkonen. But his save percentage, his goals against are far outweigh Kahkonen. So, you can sit there and go, well, who's the guy do you want in those situations? Because I know it's going to be, whether it's Remenda or whoever, they're going to sit there and go, oh, well, it's always about the W. Who's getting the wins, who get the wins. And it's like, come on. A lot of that has to do with the guy who's in front of you. There are fucking players in front of you, 5 guys consistently in front of you. They are going to dictate to a certain extent just how good or bad your numbers are. So despite the fact that over the last 12, Kahkonen's 3-2-0 and Blackwood's 2-4-1, Blackwood still has a better save percentage and is almost a goal against better. What does that tell you? Blackwood ain't going fucking anywhere. I'm tired of hearing, who's ever dispelling these rumors, stop. Just stop. Now, after 24 games, would it bake your noodle to know that Zetterlund leads this team with 7?
Yeah,
I mean, dude, let's be honest. If we talked about this at the beginning of October, had no idea about Couture's injury, anybody would go, it's going to be, after 24 games, goal leader, it's going to be Couture or Hertl, one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then you pile on that Zetterlund, let's be honest, didn't have the best season when, after the trade.
Right.
Took him a little time to get acclimated.
Which happens.
Yeah, absolutely. But, dude, he's basically scoring every third game.
I think what makes it so special, so important, right, is the fact that he was one of the pieces coming back for Timo Meier.
Hell yeah.
And not to disparage anything that Zetterlund could bring to the table, but if he was a guy the Sharks drafted, or a guy the Sharks had signed as a free agent, or maybe traded a draft pick for, yeah, you want him to do well, but it's kind of oh yeah, do well, not do well. Okay, cool. But the fact that it's, I would argue depending on who you ask, either the second or third most intriguing piece in the the trade of the century for the Sharks. I think there's extra weight to how well he's playing.
Absolutely.
Something to think about.
Yeah, no, I'm blown away. I didn't have a lot of hopes. I thought
I'm not blown away.
I'm blown away because
I'm pleased, but not blown away.
Oh, so be pleased. I'm a little blown away because I set the bar super duper low.
Sure.
So I'm pretty happy. And now let's throw some context on that plate. Would Zetterlund be in the position he is right now if we didn't see those injuries to Couture and Barabanov? But maybe that is a case, referring back to LeBanc, Zetterlund is making the most out of these opportunities he is being given because of those injuries, whereas LeBanc is, shall we say, not.
Well, and specifically with somebody like Barabanov, right, where it was where it was maybe kind of 50-50 on whether it made sense to trade him or bring him back. If all of the sudden you have, to your point, I'm not going to sit here and say I expected Zetterlund to lead the team in goals, but I expected him to play well, right?
Yeah.
And so for all of the sudden, a guy that you had penned for maybe your third line at best, right?
Sure.
For him to all of the sudden lead the team in goals, I think it might tip the scale in favor of trading when it comes to somebody like Barabanov, like Duclair, like Zadina, even though Zadina's hurt, where you finally, for the first time in a long time, you feel like you have that backfill,
Yeah, no, and this is something we've heard it from Wilson, we've heard it from Greer, is guys are going to come in and they're going to try to take other people's spots. If Zetterlund is able to come in and make another Shark expendable, so be it.
Well, and what comes to mind for me, and it's kind of funny too, right? But you look at the way this would have been right before the Sharks made the playoffs for the final time, right?
Oh my God, it was so long ago. I don't know if I can remember that far back.
I know, right? But you look at where kind of how things progressed, right? You had guys like Timo Meier. Timo Meier and Kevin LeBanc are specifically the two that kind of fit into this narrative. But you look at from, I would say, 2017 to 2019, you look at how those two players grew. It made certain guys expendable, guys like Mikhail Bodker, who I know he did not live up to expectations, but he was somebody who it was a lot easier to get rid of him because you had backfill, right?
Sure. And
And
the fact that he injured your best player.
right. And, to it kind of made I'm going to catch a lot of shit for saying this.
Oh, say it, baby.
But, it kind of softened the landing on letting Patrick Marleau go. Right? I mean,
yeah,
I'm not
I don't
going to
have a
sit
problem
here,
with that, but
I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, isn't it funny how Marleau leaves and the best team in franchise history happened 2 years later? Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that because that's just bullshit. But you lose Marleau, which was a huge loss, but then it's like, no, it's okay because we've got Timo Meier coming in who's awesome. We have LeBanc coming in who's awesome. Joe Pavelski has somehow found another level. We brought in whatever your personal shit aside, Evander Kane did score goals on this team.
Sure.
And so it just
solid year.
right. And so I think, having that backfill makes it a lot easier to let guys go. Like I would be bummed out if Barabanov did get traded, but I feel better about it after seeing what Zetterlund has done thus far.
I totally agree with you. The thing that I think would also, I mean, tell me I'm wrong. I think you and I would both be okay, both as huge Barabanov fans. Yay.
Yep.
The fact that if the Sharks were to get something decent back, like say a third or a fourth, which I don't think is out of,
I think that's probably aiming low.
Okay, then there you go. But last I looked, Barabanov was a waiver claim. So
no, he was.
I thought it was a claim.
No, you're thinking of Rudolph Balcers from a couple years ago.
Well, how did they get Barabanov?
They traded Antti Suomela for him.
Oh, okay. Well, it's then still found money.
Right. Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah, I was thinking of Balcers. But either way, dude, moving Suomela for Barabanov is found fucking money.
Even if Barabanov walks away as a free agent, you still came out ahead in that transaction.
Absolutely. But if you can move him for any and how old is Barbie right now? Like 28, 29?
Right now he is currently 29. He just turned 29 back in June.
Okay, so 29, and he's on the last year of his deal or one more?
Correct. He's going to be a free agent at year's end.
Okay, so yeah, dude, tell me he is not just like low-hanging ripe fruit on the vine for some team that would love to have a little bit of scoring depth in their second and third lines and at a very affordable price. Yeah, dude, if you can pick up like a high third from that, dude.
I think they did the smart thing, them being the Sharks. They did the smart thing, like whether it's keep him or trade him, right? Like
I'm fine either way.
Yeah, no, I am too. But regardless of what the plan is, they put him with Hertl and Eklund for this game tonight. And and so regardless
featured.
Right. So whether the plan is to trade him or the plan is to keep him, you have him in the right place. And that's going to give his offense the best opportunity to grow, right? And I've been saying, I think I said it the last time he was a free agent. It's like I can think of 5 teams right now who would be dying to bring in a player like Barabanov just because of what he's proven to be able to bring to a top 6 while also not making a lot of money. I mean, I know 2 years ago when he was a free agent, I think he was making $1 million, or he might have been making $1.25 million, something like that.
Yep.
Even at $2.5 million, that's still a value piece to have in your lineup. Like I said, with Hertl and Timo Meier, he played extremely, extremely well. Imagine, say you're Tampa Bay and you're looking for somebody like, who could we do with Point and Kucherov? Say you're Vegas. Who could we do with Eichel and Marchessault?
Tell me Vegas wouldn't love trying to move some other piece back in order for your second favorite player.
I mean, it's gonna cost something, but I'm not against it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Say you're I mean, I'm trying to, like, say you're the New York Rangers, you know what I mean? How would you feel about you put Barabanov with, say, a Zibanejad and a Panarin? You know what I mean?
So I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Like, he's proven, and this is not just some random guy that was like, oh my God, he's the best. But like, he's proven, despite having a very kind of one and done play style, he's proven very effective when playing with good players. And so I think if you're a team that has good players and maybe you want to add a jolt to that, I think he's a guy you give a hard look at.
Dude, bit of a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
And those are always valuable. In fact, remember, I think the broadcast was talking about Kahkonen in the same way over the last week or so, that he has been thrust into whether he needs to come in to be a second line center, third line winger. This guy that, like, Kahkonen has proven to be that Swiss Army knife. Every team needs one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's that thing of, you know what, Barabanov, you if you are able to return the Sharks, I mean, this is a team that got a first rounder for Barclay fucking Goodrow. So if you're able to get a second rounder, second or third for Barabanov at 29 at a really good price point, maybe you get like a third and a sixth for him.
Right, and
maybe that's a little pie in the sky, but I definitely think Barabanov has some pretty good value. But conversely, as a 29-year-old, I don't hate giving him, like, after the end of the season, I don't hate the idea of giving him a 2 or 3 year deal.
Yeah, just run it back again.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with it at all.
And that's the thing, right? Is with Barabanov, like, it's kind of similar to Duclair, right? Where it's like, you take it or leave it. Like, whichever happens, I don't think there's a right answer, you know?
Well, after these 24 games, Zetterlund is your lead goal scorer at 7. Hoffman was 6. Eklund, Kahkonen, and Duclair all had 5 coming into this. I don't know that I have Duclair's numbers on this, so he might have, like, tied Hoffman at 6.
Yeah, he's at 6 now.
There you go. But then on the blue line, last 12 games, Ahochuk, dude, 5 points.
Mm-hmm.
Are you kidding me? Like, nearly a third of the way into the season, and Nikita is your point leader on the blue line?
Another piece from the Timo Meier trade.
I was going to say, and not something I had on my blue line. The other thing that'll bake your noodle is the fact that Addison is the one that's just behind him.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, you think about it, like, Addison, he was the guy that was picked up after Greer had the come to Jesus meeting with the team the day before.
Right.
And said, if shit doesn't change, we're going to make some changes. And all of a sudden, Addison got picked up the next day, and we're like, okay, well, now what?
and the thing that's in Addison's favor is like, I don't think, like, I do think there is more ceiling for him to reach specifically on this team. I would like to see more, but at the same time, when you put all the defensemen kind of into a basket and you're just looking at what everybody has done, like, for not being here the whole year, like, he's already jumped to the front page, right?
Dude.
Even though
seamlessly fit in so far.
Right. Even though I personally would like to see more, I do think he is leading that pack.
Absolutely. No, I mean, we always, of course, almost always we want to see more, but for a guy who's coming to this situation, like we've talked about earlier, where it's like, whoo, good luck finding a seat on the D train. He's easily been able to, like, oh, no, I found my space. I'm right here. I'm good.
Well, and among defensemen, and I know it doesn't matter, but it is something to chew on. Among defensemen, he has the second best, I guess you could say, plus minus rating.
Yeah. Who doesn't like that?
Right. And it doesn't mean everything, but it means something within the context, right?
It means you're part of the solution, not the problem.
Right.
Right. So earlier this week, the Athletic did a whole trade board, and the Athletic had Anthony Duclair at number 15, Kaapo Kahkonen at 21, Barabanov at 24. Those were 3 Sharks in their top 25 trade boards. So 3 out of 25. How do you like Duclair? I get, and I will be the first one to say that I think that Duclair was a reclamation project that Greer had his sights on, thinking
Mm,
that. Well, go ahead, because I
I don't
honestly.
consider Duclair a reclamation
Okay,
project.
well then I phrased that incorrectly. I should have said I feel like Greer identified Duclair as a guy that we're going to get him on the team. We're going to maximize his value and then move him at the deadline to help us build.
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
That sounds fair.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, yeah.
Okay. Kahkonen,
Mm-hmm.
number 21. This is one of those things where I sit there and I go, you know what? This is the play right now between Blackwood and Kahkonen. One of these guys is going to stand out. I feel like one of them is moving at the deadline. Obviously Kahkonen, this is his final year. Blackwood has one more year, if I remember correctly. Isn't Blackwood like a year younger than Kahkonen? Not that makes that much of a difference at the goalie position.
Yeah, the Blackwood is 26. Kahkonen is 27. So yeah.
Yeah, so I understand the idea of Kahkonen.
Actually, Blackwood is going to be 27 in a week. So pretty much the same age.
Oh, okay. But yeah, then that makes it interesting. The thing is, if I'm Greer, and I'll throw this to you, you have Blackwood, you have Kahkonen, you kind of sit there and go, well, you dance with the one that brung you. You want to obviously keep hold of the guy that you think is the future. And right now, I would say that is Blackwood, but Kahkonen is making that vision a little fuzzy. But the thing that is making it even fuzzier is the fact that Krona, Makiniemi, the guys underneath aren't making, their play to come up. You know what I mean?
Right.
It would be different if you had somebody at the lower level, be it Makiniemi, Krona, whoever, somebody would come along and say, I don't belong here. I should be up higher. And I feel like none of the guys with the Barracuda are forcing Greer's hand, or I should say making it easier for Greer to make that decision to try to shop Kahkonen.
Well, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I also think it's kind of a hard time to do that, just because even though we've and you and I have agreed, like, who gives a shit that the trade deadline is 3 months away? Like, if you if you can get value for somebody now, do it, right? But at the same time, I do think that certain players will be better off to you value return wise if you do kind of wait it out, right? Because if you trade Kahkonen now, let's just say, yeah, maybe you can get something decent for a team that needs a goalie. But if you kind of just ride the wave and see if he can't string together some good games, then all of a sudden your outlook is different. I mean, to your point, imagine those first 12 games of the season. It's like, we got to get rid of Kahkonen. Like, the Sharks can be begging to get
Yeah.
him
Oh,
out, right?
dude.
And now all of a sudden, the next 13 games, it's all of a sudden it's like, well, hey, hold on, there might be a little player there,
Yeah, it has more wins than
Right.
Blackwood.
I think when it comes to goaltenders, I mean, you kind of have to wait it out, but also it's just goalies are such a tough nut to crack, right?
Yes.
Because you've seen really elite goalies crumble, and you've seen kind of guys who came out of nowhere are like stars at the right time, So they're really a tough nut to crack.
Well, the other funny thing is that the Daily Face-Off and their top 20 trade targets, Mike Hoffman at 11.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily agree, or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say I don't disagree with that. I mean, granted, accelerated age, but you look at his history, it seems like he just always, for whatever reason, comes into whatever situation and improves it.
Mm-hmm.
It took him a while, as you're saying, to crack the nut. It took him a little while to find his rhythm in San Jose, but clearly over the last couple of weeks, he's started to find it. And I would go back a little bit to what I said. I don't know how the hell Hoffman was on the fourth line tonight.
Right.
I don't get that. But Chief is starting to make the most of his opportunities. Hopefully, he is a guy who can. Again, I don't want to jinx anything. Like, I don't want the injury revolving door to continue spinning. But when it does, Hoffman gets more and more opportunities to take advantage. We said it either last week or the week before. How, at this point, do you not ride the top line of Eklund, Hertl, and Hoffman?
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and they, for a while, a couple games, they did exactly that.
Yeah, and so that's why I was like losing my shit when I saw Hoffman on the fourth line tonight. I'm like, God damn, what the fuck? Especially if this is a guy who, like I said, accelerated age, 1-year deal, has a history for coming into teams and just adding on and making things better. What are you busting him down on the fourth line for? Like, showcase this dude. This is a guy that you can move right now if somebody is going to come along and throw you something.
I will say this as well, and again, everything you've said I agree with, but I will also say that certain players, and I think Mike Hoffman is one of those players, the cachet that comes with his name is almost enough to boost his trade value on its own, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, I think
he's got numbers.
Right, and certain guys, you know what I mean? Like, you look at, okay, so maybe they're Hoffman being one, Granlund being another. Like, they're not having a great season, but they're still good players. And so in a better situation, or in the right, again, not better, right, in the right situation, you can flourish. And so I think even if Hoffman spends the remainder of the season on the fourth line, I still think just based on name and previously shown talent alone, he could get the Sharks something. Of course, you want to inflate the numbers as much as you can, but I don't think him being on the fourth line makes him untradeable.
Absolutely. Dude, last time I looked, every team needs a fourth line.
Right.
So you have that. The other one, though, I thought was a little odd was Kevin LeBanc at number 20. And
so
I'm just going, dude, the Sharks barely have them in their top 20.
Similar, but not the same. Where I think with LeBanc, like, despite everything that's gone on with him the last 3 years, like, you've obviously seen what he's capable of, and so he's not
small samples.
Sure, but I do think, like I said, like, I don't think you're going to get a lot for LeBanc. You might, if I'm being optimistic, you might get a fourth for him, right? But there are many teams out there. There are many teams out there who would take a chance because of what he has done. And I think it's more likely than not that it doesn't work out. But I think a player that's shown that talent, I think if you're a team, you take a chance on that. You see if you can unlock something that's kind of been repressed for a while. And also, like, worst case scenario, have you ever heard of a team that wins a Stanley Cup upset that they have too much depth?
True, Dad. Again, LeBanc is a guy that I root for, but I just sometimes, man, I watch him and I'm like, I don't even know what sport you're playing here half the time. Elliot Friedman earlier this week, which a whole bunch of people glommed onto, which we will get into in a short minute. We'll reference that again. Said the San Jose Sharks have let it be known they will consider a lot on the blue line in terms of who might be available, and intimated no one is off the table, including Mario Ferraro. And, like, if Mario Ferraro was off the table, I would be going, Mike, what the fuck are you doing?
Right. Well, and if you recall, would have been last year's trade deadline. Not that anything was like concrete or close or anything, but it was kind of dangled out there that a couple teams had asked.
Yeah, sure. But it's like, if we're breaking out the crystal ball, bring out that magic 8 ball. We're looking at the little blue triangle. Vlasic is not part of the future. This is not somebody that we, that we're really caring about. Like I said, Most expensive, highest paid seventh D man in league history. I have no problem with that over the next 2 seasons. Sharks aren't going to the playoffs this year. I would put significant money. They're not going to playoffs next season. This is
What?
I know. How dare you say that?
You're a hater.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. You look at all the contracts Greer has signed. It seems very clear that it's a 3-year process that they have in place right now. At the end of the 3 years, they'll reassess, see where they're at. And Mark Edward Vlasic is part of the 3.5 year, if you will. If they buy him out for the final year, I will still be feeling a certain kind of way, and it won't be fun. Mm-hmm. But you look at it, it's Ruta through this year and next year. I mean, honestly, is anybody throwing money and offer to get? I don't want to hear about what the shit he did in Tampa. Chief is 33 years old, making 2.7, playing bottom pairing minutes for the Sharks. Is this a piece that you think is going to be valuable at the trade deadline? Because I don't.
I do think so. Again, I think it goes back to what I just said a couple minutes ago. Is you've never heard about teams complaining about how much having too much depth, and I think a player like Jan Ruta, I don't think you can have enough of those guys. I believe it was their second Stanley Cup. I think Pittsburgh used like 9 defensemen or something like that. So you never know.
Or what the Sharks call Thursday.
Right. And you just never know,
All right. So Jan Ruta, 33 years old. I just go. Then you move on. Matthew Benning, 29 years old, 1.2 over this year, next year, and the year after that. 3-year deal. I feel like Benning was signed to kind of be a mentor. This is a guy that we want here to drive the culture for the defensive group.
Yeah, could be.
Not expendable, especially at that price point. Is there a team that's going to take that on with 2 years added? Probably not.
You don't think so?
It depends on their situation. I would say probably not. I think there are probably other options that they might look at.
Sure, but I think also...
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm looking at the defensive squad, right? And I'm sitting there, and let's be honest, we're trying to flip this and franchise around back into a winning path. I look at Mark Edward Vlasic, 36 years old, clearly not part of the solution. Jacob McDonald, he's 30 years old. People go, oh my God, he's 30. Yeah, he's making $760,000. Who fucking cares? Keep him around if he wants to stay around. He's the highest scoring defenseman on the team right now. So go ahead, keep him around. Jan Ruta, if somebody were to come along, knock on the door and be like, hey, can we take him off your hands for a 5th or a 6th? And it's like, yeah, you're going to eat all of that contract, including next year. Here you go. Take him. Benning and Burroughs, yeah. I mean, those are guys that you kind of love them, hate them. Like one game you see him and you're like, ugh. The next game you're like, hell yeah, this is what I'm talking about. And I can see if they're paying some of that money to instill some culture into the guys that are coming up, that they want to instill whatever it is, a certain fight, a certain mindset, whatever it is. I can see that. And when you're paying them together $2.3 million, yeah, I'm okay with that.
Thing is, though, like, I think Addison, Ohotiuk, and Emberson, I think those are guys you absolutely have to keep.
Oh, dude. And I haven't even talked about those guys because I completely agree with you. The fact that Mario Ferraro is making more than Benning and Burroughs combined.
Well, and so that's the thing. Those 3 guys that I mentioned, those are guys that I think you absolutely have to keep.
Yes. All of them are RFA, all of them 23 or younger.
Mario Ferraro, I think you absolutely need to get rid of. And because here's the thing, like, it's exactly what we talked about just a few minutes ago.
But who's taking him?
I think there's a lot of teams that would take him. I think all other
without the Sharks eating salary.
I think I don't know. I'm starting like.
What do you think the return is? What do you think the return is looking like on that 6th rounder?
No, I think as not great as he's been for the Sharks, he has a lot of value around the league. Like I have no doubt in my
Well,
mind about
because
that.
I mean, this is something we talked about either last week or the week before. It's like Mario Ferraro, fucking amazing shot blocker. Oh my god, look, he leads the league in block shots, and I'm like, yes, because he's on the team that leads the league in shots allowed. You
People look at those raw numbers though, man, you know?
yeah, I know, but you get what I'm saying. It's the, it's this whole idea of it's like, well, AJ leads his friend in, time spent in a commute. And it's, and all my friends commute from Sunnyvale to San Jose, and I'm commuting from San Jose to Sacramento. It's like, yeah, of course I'm going to lead it in that spot. It's what happened. But go ahead. I don't know. To espouse the beautifulness that makes up Mario Ferraro.
Well, no, I actually don't think he's that good, but I do think he has a lot of value around the league. And I do think, as much as I hate to say it, similar to Timo Meyer, like he's kind of at that age where you can trade him away and you can get something quality
Kind of a
while
shitter get off the pot.
while also giving the acquiring team a longer term asset. And I think as much as has been talked about again with the Sharks blue line, I do think that the Sharks have the backfill to trade away Mario Ferraro, because say you do that, you've got Addison, you have Ahotyuk, you have Emberson, you have Kanizhov if he figures it out, right?
Yeah.
But then beyond that, you've got Thrun, you've got Mukhamadullin,
And I believe Kanizhov is the same age as Ferraro.
Right. And so what I'm saying is with the Sharks, like you do have backfill that is worth, hedging your bets on, so to speak, that you can trade away Ferraro and get something that might help you out in another area of your team.
You're Mike Greer. Ferraro,
Okay.
Ferraro on your list, or you're thinking like despite what you tell the media and blah, blah, nobody's off the table, blah blah blah. In the back of your mind, behind closed doors where nobody can listen, are you saying no, motherfuckers need to get back up, like something significant to get Ferraro because I believe in this kid and I think he's gonna help us going forward. I love his motor, I love his compete, or are you kind of like, oh, everybody's on the table, blah blah blah. I can't fucking wait to get rid of Ferraro. Like what? Like where are you at?
Well, I think with Ferraro, it's a situation where if you get a quality offer from him, you move him, and if you don't, you have the luxury of time to hold on to him, just because there's 2 years after this year, so you've got plenty of time to figure out what to do, right? And so I think if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, we'd love to take Ferraro and we'll give you X, Y, or Z," and you think it's a quality return, I say you do it. But if it's a situation where a team comes to you and says, "Hey, you know what? Like, we don't really want to do this deal now, but we like where the player might be a year from now. We can talk about it then." I would be okay with that too, because you've got so much team control with him.
All right, we have to move on, but I do want to get to Kevin Lacey's comment before we go forward because it's kind of something that we touched on before. Ferraro's issue isn't that he's bad; it's that he's a second pair D playing on the first pair. Well, I mean, dude, we've said that like all season long. He's not being deployed correctly, but it's not Mario's fault. It's a lack of options.
Right.
So there you go. Let's move it on. I don't know if you saw on the social, but there seemed to be a decent amount of people flipping their fucking lids. The fact that the Sharks were wearing teal buckets while wearing road jerseys, is this really that big of a deal?
I don't think it's a big deal in the sense that like I would bitch and moan if they went back to it, but as as a fan of like fun uniform styles and quirks, I think it's really cool to do. And I hope, and I was actually talking about this with a couple people, like I think wearing, your colored helmet on the road with the white jerseys, I think that's going to be one of those things similar to wearing white at home, where like we will remember the time before it happened, but eventually it's just going to become normal where you don't even think twice about it. Like I kind of think
See,
that's where things are going.
I'm not even thinking twice about it now. Like until I saw it called out, I'm like, oh, they are. Like it, unless somebody pointed out to me, I wouldn't have even fucking noticed. But that's fine. Shit happens. Not everything is for everyone. Which leads me to Reddit. Oh, this was fun. So, for those of you who don't know, there is a social media platform called Reddit, and they talk about the Sharks, they talk about hockey, they talk about hockey jerseys. They literally talk about everything under the sun. And when I say talk about it, I say that's probably a synonym for needlessly bitch about shit that doesn't matter. But that's pretty much all of social media. I think we could all agree on. But I got a big kick out of a comment. Somebody started a thread, or what is that what it's called on Reddit? Because I don't pay attention. I don't give a shit. Is it called a thread?
A post.
A post. There you go. Somebody started a post on Reddit that said, name us your, I need podcast recommendations. I'm a Sharks fan. I need recommendations for podcasts. And it was primarily held to what I will euphemistically refer to as the big four. There's us, there's Fin Factor, there's Locked On Sharks, there's Shang. Is it just the San Jose Hockey Now podcast? Is that what it is?
Correct.
Okay. So what I will refer to as the big four. There's, Tara Sloan does the Undercurrent, and Ted Ramey does the Sharks Audio Network stuff. There's Dudes on Hockey. There's Circling the Cup. There's, who am I missing? There's Over the Boards, I want to say. I think that sounds right. There's at least a few more that weren't even mentioned. But there was somebody who came along as the critique from the handle deep_excitement 1192, which I did post in the Reddit that we would be commenting on tonight. His comment was, Teal Town USA is probably the podcast I would not recommend. Now, again, I just start off with the fact that as soon as I read that, I kind of chuckle and I go, well, he said podcast recommendations. It didn't start off with podcasts I would not recommend. But either way, I got a kick out of that right off the hop. And he said, whether it's continuously complaining about jersey designs, downtown San Jose changing and impacting the team, repeating outdated jokes, parenthetically Borat, or passing themselves off as journalists by taking other sports media content and passing it off as their own, their streams don't stand out much and aren't any different and in-depth as I'd like to see or hear from a Sharks podcast. I just wanted to take the time, and I'll probably do the same on Reddit because not everybody listens to us, and which is fine. It's more than fine. But I saw this comment, and I'm like, I just want to kind of address these directly and one by one, continuously complaining about jersey designs. As far as I know, like this season, I don't know have we really talked about jerseys at all? Because there haven't been any new jerseys really to talk about. I mean, we poked some fun at the Vegas and Seattle. What is that? Is that the Winter Classic or whatever the hell it is? Poked a little bit of fun about that, but like continuously complaining. I mean, sure, if that's your vibe. Downtown San Jose changing and impacting the team. We haven't talked about that since last season. Repeating outdated jokes, parenthetically Borat. I mean, what is it? Like once every 10 shows, me and you might go, my wife, to say something in 2 seconds over a 2-hour show. I mean, if it bugs you that much, sure, I get it. I think it's a little presumptuous that you think that there's not somebody out there that goes, you know what I'm missing in a Sharks podcast? I want to listen to somebody that continuously complains about jerseys, tells me what's going on in downtown San Jose, respectful to the impact of the tank, but I want them also to use Borat inflections. It's very presumptuous to think that there's not somebody out there that's looking for that. And the thing that really got me, though, was passing themselves off as journalists by taking other sports media content and passing it off as their own. First off, we have never passed ourselves off as journalists. Not once, not ever. We are quote unquote considered media, just like Brody Brazil is considered media, not a journalist. Ted Ramey, media, not a journalist. Curtis Pashelka, journalist, writes for a living. Shang, journalist, writes for a living. But the thing, and then, what was it? Taking other sports content, passing it off as their own. Give me a single example. We always credit anything that we talk about. We don't take somebody else's content and say, oh, we're going to talk about this. We clearly don't write about it. The website hardly has any articles on it. We'll talk about something that is reported. We never pass it off as if we came across that information. If anything, there are actually some other people who will look at a quote from a Darren Drager or an Elliot Friedman or whoever, and they will parse an 18-word quote into a 200-word article. But anyway, I got a kick out of it. I just want to say deep_excitement 1192. Dude, you gave me a chuckle, and for that, I thank you. I got a huge kick out of that comment. I thought it was hysterical. So let's move on before we get out of here. Around the horn when it comes to the NHL. Last week we asked, the fuck is going on with Corey Perry and the Blackhawks? And now we know. Had nothing to do with Connor Bedard. Perry put out an apology, evidently seeking treatment. Good for him. And I want to say best wishes. Hopefully he is able to turn it around like Jim Montgomery has. If you don't know, look it up. But bro, Jim Montgomery, didn't he take leave from the Dallas Stars to seek treatment? Am I right in that, jerk?
He resigned.
Wow. Went full resignation, and now look at him. King shit behind the Boston bench, just wrecking stuff. You talk about a bounce back. Dude, huge. Sens versus Panthers last Monday. Have you ever seen a game where everybody on the ice got a 10-minute misconduct?
Definitely, I think, speaks to the
lack of officiating.
The way that game got out of hand.
Dude, how does a game that get that far out of hand? Was that like a just, a Kachukka fuck?
Well, I was going to say, you think about who the arguably the best player on each of those teams is, and, it's not
just let them both meet outside by the bike racks.
Right.
Whew. All right, so this is something that I wanted to get into a little bit. Dude, the NHL All Star Game, we're going back to the draft thing, really? How do you feel about this? I didn't have a problem with the 3-on-3. I didn't care for it, but I was like, it's fine.
Well, they're still doing the 3-on-3.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they're sort of mixing the two together, where it's still going to be
that just goes to show you how much how poor of a job they're doing getting this out.
Well, it's still the 3-on-3 tournament. It's just instead of divisions, it's going to be the player drafted teams, which like everything they've done with the All Star Game, everything they've done with the All Star Game, I think it's a fun idea in principle, but
they're gonna fuck it up.
Well, I'd be curious to see if they can get the players to care.
I'll be curious to see if they get the fans to care.
Honestly, I think the more exciting addition to the All Star Weekend is having the PWHL showcase. I think that's honestly the most exciting new addition for me.
Okay, so dude, when they did the draft, the viewership went down exponentially. It was bad. They did it for 3 years. It kept going down and down and down. People didn't like it. And now they're going back to it. And I saw something that said now to get out of the whole embarrassment that Phil Kessel went through as the last man chosen. Oh, he was last man. Let's give him a brand new car. No, no, no. Now it's going to be like when it gets down to like the final four, there's going to be some other interesting way that they're going to get around it to not make people feel so bad. It's like, really? Is that where we're at? I don't know about you. When I was on the playground and we were picking kids for like kickball or volleyball or whatever it was, there was always the last one picked. Nobody like went to the corner and started crying about it because their last one picked. I don't get that process of it. The other thing that I don't care about, we're now making this 3 days. People didn't watch it when it was 2. I love the fact that they're bringing in the PWHL. Absolutely love that. But are you really going to tell me that they can't have a PWHL exhibition an hour before the actual All-Star game? Is that a problem?
Well, the thing is though, it's like the All-Star weekend, it's not about television viewership. Like those are big mingling events for sponsors, and there's also a lot of young fan engagement that creates a buzz for people who are either new fans or newer fans. So I don't think the NHL, I really don't think they care all that much about the viewership, just because the benefits from other angles of it are totally worth it for them.
I just like I could barely get through it in 2 days, and now they're going to stretch it out to 3 days, and I'm going. You know what? My weekend just got even more and more open. Like I'll record this, but you watch how fast I speed forward through this. I'm down for some of this stuff, but I don't think it needs to be a 3-day event. Let's move on to our tweet of the week. Now, this is both fun and funny. The ECHL has announced that there will be a team starting to play in Lake Tahoe next October. For those of you who are local, like to go up to South Lake Tahoe, which I love, I think it's fantastic. They're playing at a brand new event center that is being built in that area. Maybe, I want to say, 2 blocks northeast of Bally's, which used to be known as Mont Bleu, but very close. Easily a place you can just pop right over, catch a game. I'm telling you right now, talking to my best friend, and we're already planning, like, yeah, we need to be there for the opening game next October. Keep an eye out for when those tickets go on sale, because I love it. The one thing I don't love, what the fuck is a night monster? Seriously. Like, you could have just called them the Tahoe Monsters. Now, I get it. There's a team in where it used to be Lake Erie. Now it's Cleveland, plays in the AHL. The Cleveland Monsters used to be the Lake Erie Monsters. That's fine. Look, you have the New York Giants, you have the San Francisco Giants. It's all fine. But what the hell is a night monster? Could it have not been just the Tahoe Monsters? And now, to take it a step further, ECHL teams, from what I've seen, how many for the Sharks, how many ECHL affiliates have the Sharks had in like the last 10 years, Jerk? I remember the Fort Wayne Comets at one point.
Allen Americans,
Wichita
Thunder, and I don't think it was an official affiliation, but I know during the pandemic they had players going to the Orlando Solar Bears.
Jeez. So you look at this logo and you're like, yeah, but how great would it look when San Jose takes over the affiliation? I got to tell you, that looks pretty fucking boss. Go from the Tahoe Night Monsters to the Lake Tahoe Monsters? Hell the fuck yeah. And Mike Molasses even calling out the Fresno Falcons.
Stockton Thunder as well.
Oh, yeah, but they were attached to. Oh, no. Stockton Thunder before they went Stockton Heat and attached to Calgary. Yes. But either way, dude, I'm looking forward to that. So, it is our 200th episode of this. Did you ever think after 10 shows we'd be at 200?
No, we've come a long way.
So, cheers to all of you in the chat that have hung out through 200 episodes, who have come along and joined the party. I know, what was it, through 50, 60 episodes, somewhere in there, it used to be that we would pre-record it, and then at some point we just said, fuck it, we'll do it live. And that's how we've been rolling ever since, and I think we have a little bit more production value now that we've been going live, a little more preparation. But give me, like, 3 of your favorite moments over these previously these 200, like a tiger saying, "Congrats on 200, cunts." give me your, just 3 memories that stand out for you, that when you just, you roll it back in your mind for a second, it just gives you a chuckle.
Not a specific,
or let's go back and forth. You do one, I'll do one.
Not a specific memory, but I do find enjoyable, like, and we've giving it a name, the zero bump. Like, the zero bump is a relatively new name, but it's something that has been kind of a thing off and on for a while. It's just only recently that it had an official name, and I find it enjoyable when the zero bump hits, just because it's kind of, it's a lot to, like, put yourself out in a public sphere and, like, talk about something that is widely polarizing and a lot of people have opinions on. And so to kind of put something out there and then have it end up being correct, like, sure, maybe it's ego based, but I also think that it is a bit vindicating to be like, hey, like, I know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I'll put it out to the chat. Share your favorite, if you've got a favorite thing. Marty T says AJ's fake infomercial.
Talking the Gus Nyquist trade coming down while we were live on air. That might have been, and that was like one of our first live shows too, was the Gus Nyquist trade breaking down. So that was, again, like, not so much fun as much as it is just, like, really cool to be like, hey, this thing sort of fell into our laps live and we got to snap it around,
Oh, yeah, because you don't, I mean, dude, how many times do you see info come down the pipe late on a Sunday?
Mm-hmm.
I will say, one of my favorites was back when Rocket was with us, and for whatever reason, I was like, okay, the Sharks were in a state of flux, kind of like, okay, we need to start making projections now. Okay, do the Sharks make the playoffs? Rocket, oh yeah. Jerk, absolutely. Okay, I am unsure.
That, as far as, like, one-liners go, or, like, quips, like, that I think is probably towards the top.
Dude,
because of how unexpected it was, right? Like, because that was, we've since become a lot less regimented.
Yes.
But, that was at a time where it was very, not to say that, like, answers were picked out or anything like that, but it was more like, okay, like, let's just have one big fact sheet and then kind of, like, snap it around and see what, kind of, know what we're going to talk about. And so the fact that, like, that was just, like, off the dome, like, in a time where everything was, like, super, like, dialed in, like, I think is what added to how funny it was.
Absolutely. I like the fact that when we switched over to this live YouTube thing, that for a while it was the case that I would change the graphic that represents you on every show, whether it was the shirt you're wearing, the background that's behind your avatar, and I would randomly spring upon you the change for that week. And
yeah, that was always fun.
Just to get your live reaction. Because there was one time where I had a shirt that you were wearing that said, "I want you to be less stupid,"
Well, I think for me, when that bit was a thing, right?
Keep
I
Tahoe blue.
Yeah, the Tahoe one was the best one just because of all the dialogue surrounding the Tahoe game, and I think well, and what was fun too was that what the shirt was going to be was not something that I was clued in on. It was
Yeah.
very much a surprise, right?
Yeah.
And so to have a 90-second dialogue about how stupid talking about the Tahoe games. I shouldn't say talking about Tahoe games, but talking about the Sharks should have been in the Tahoe games. Like I recall like I went it was like a 60 or 90-second thing about how like just who cares? There's no fans anyway. Like it literally does not matter. Who gives a shit? And then from there, with the fact that talking about how dumb the Tahoe game dialogue was, and then the fact that I was essentially going in blind every week to what the shirt was going to be,
Oh, it was
to then,
fantastic.
yeah, to then like be like, oh, I almost forgot. Here's your shirt, and then it's directly related to Tahoe. After I did a whole thing about how I was sick of talking about Tahoe, like
Or
it was immaculate timing.
or the fact that I like spoke for like 3 minutes straight, just all over the place, and I'm like, so Jerk, what do you think about that? What do I think about what?
Yeah, and that see, and at the time, like I remember at the time because that was our first season when like still trying to get my chops as like as a talker, right? And then so to completely and there was no real reason for it to just completely like you know space out essentially, and then like to get a question, and I was like, okay, like
What the
I
fuck was
had
he
it.
bitching about?
It was a very formative choice there, right? Because I could have easily, been diplomatic and been like, "Oh, can you repeat the question or can you give me better context?" But I was kind of like, "You know what? Like let's be funny. Let's be kind of stupid." And so I was like, "Oh, what do I think about what?" Which legitimate confusion, but also like, well, I might as well steer into it, you know?
Absolutely. And and this is the thing that I did not see coming. AO coming in on the chat.
Hey, oh.
I missed the AJ soundboard. It's funny. There are like one or two people that have brought that up. Like, oh, I missed the days of the soundboard. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are, that was a feature of the show, a component, if you will, that for whatever reason seemed to get more negative than positive comments. So took it away. And, it's fine. I don't have a problem with it. It leaves me one less thing that I have to worry about. But there were definitely some, I will say, one of my favorites was you were talking about like Donskoy not performing, or, it's like, well, look at how long it's been since he's had a goal. And I said, oh, wait, I think we have some audio from Donskoy. And it was the AOL sounder was like, goodbye.
Yeah, see, that was one of the times where the soundboard was perfect because again,
Right?
it's just it wasn't like it wasn't really teed up.
It wasn't planned. It was
No,
just
it
in the
just
moment.
yeah, it just dropped in. But I mean, the Donskoy, like you mentioned Donskoy, right? The weekly bit of like, okay, this is today's date, and Donskoy is still not scored a goal, or it's today's date, and Yannick Hansen is still on the team. You know what I mean? Like that was always like,
Oh,
even though like
the how many goals do you think Bodka? There's 6 games left. AJ, how many goals do you think Bodker's going to have? Oh fuck, how many does he have? 14. Okay, not 6.
right.
Yeah, some of those bets. Yeah, so I think what we're trying to say is it's been a lot of fun doing 200 episodes. Not everyone was fantastic. It's fine. But there was definitely a few that I think Jerk and I can look back, and back when Rocket was with us, like we can look back at those and say, you know what? Those are some really fucking good shows. They were funny, they were informative. We whipped it around, we imparted a little bit of knowledge, but maybe we also gave the listener a bit of a chuckle here and there, which, let's be honest, is what we're here for. This is infotainment, right? Share a little info. Hopefully we give you a laugh once in a while. That's all we're here for. So, I mean, 200. You think you got another 200 in you, or this might be it?
We're gonna do 200 more this season. What are you talking about?
I thought you were about to say, yeah, this is we didn't want to like let you know, but this is our last show ever. Yeah, well, you know what? Talk to us in April. We'll see if we get to I don't know how many until then. Probably like another 12.
Hmm,
I want to say that's probably in the ballpark.
maybe depend. I don't know when exactly the season ends, but I think if
210, 212, somewhere there.
no, dude, more like 219.
Oh, really? Okay, so when we get to 225, we might call it. And then Chris, of course, pointing out we need to stop pretending to be journalists. And I would agree with that if we had ever pretended to be journalists. But it is what it is. All right, let's get the fuck out of here. But before we do so, we got to cover that other team for a hot minute.
Ooh, Barracuda.
Oh, another week where you kind of go, oh, so close. The Barracuda played 3 this week, including a 5-3 win over Coachella. There you go. Coachella Valley, which Gvanki found a goal and 2 assists. Bordelot also pulling 2 assists, but things went kind of south over the weekend. The Cuda lost to the Tucson Roadrunners 5-1 on Friday, and then 7-5 last night. Just not the weekend that Magnus Krona or Makaniemi were hoping for. The Cuda do remain 8th of 10 in the Pacific. I still want to know when John McCarthy's seat is going to start to heat up over there on the coaching side. The Cuda are going to host the Ontario Reign for a pair next weekend, including Hockey is for Everyone night next Saturday. I will be there. I hope you are too. If you're in the neighborhood, support that. Hockey is for everyone. Say it loud, say it proud next Saturday at Tech CU. But remember, for Teal Town, USA, you got to follow Ian Reed, Sharks Jules. Lacey jumps in there from time to time. Marky Mark jumps in there from time to time. Hit them all up for live tweets and gifts when it comes to the Barracuda games. Good sir, it is prize time. So we have signed signs and we've got bobbleheads and shit to fucking hand out. And for those of you who have not yet received the prizes that you have won, don't worry, they're coming. Everything's going out this week. I was kind of locked down over the last couple of weeks with work, but I have carved out a day this week that everything's shipping. So, what the hell did we put on the menu last week, and who won?
So
This is always the time that I throw it to Jerk, because thankfully, not only does he keep track of what the hell the contest was, but he accepts all the entries, and I appreciates that about you, man.
The contest for this past week, it was combined saves from the 4 games.
Ooh, wow!
And
I bet that New Jersey was it Yeah, the New Jersey game kind of bumped that number up a little bit.
And so we've had, we do have a winner, by the way, worth saying.
Hell yeah.
We've had, most of our contests have, really, really stuck to the closest without going over policy, right?
As you should. Uh-oh. I feel like you're turning it on its head right now.
This one, we had an exact winner.
Oh, right on the dot, number down.
Yeah, somebody's guess ended up being the exact number.
Tell me it is not somebody who's already won.
I don't believe it's somebody who's already won.
All right, that's I'd love to hear that. Room in the budget, baby.
Yeah,
lay it on me.
So this person, they've played in every contest this season too, which is awesome to see somebody finally get rewarded.
Hell yeah.
The winner, they said 141 saves. There were 141 saves.
So the winner and new champion,
Jason Lennon.
Hell yeah, I've seen that name around.
So I'm not going to dox this person, but
We should
let's
not.
just say I was very intrigued to see where this person resided. I think it's very quite interesting.
Oh.
I'm not going to dox them.
Christ almighty, please tell me it's the US 48.
It is the US 48.
Thank you. Whew.
But yeah, so Jason Lennon is our big winner. As I said, they've played in every contest this year. They played in, I don't know if they played in any of the contests last year.
Oh, dude, I thought you were going to like take it a step further. It's like played in every contest this year. They played in my fantasy hockey league for the last 3 years. They follow me on every social media platform.
Yeah, they didn't. Just looking at it, they didn't play in any of the contests last year, but they've played in everyone this year. So
Hell
to
yeah.
get rewarded,
Love
sticking
to see
with it too, because like you lose, I know for me, like if I enter a bunch of contests and I constantly lose, it's always like, gosh, why do I even enter? But so
All
it's awesome.
right.
Shout out to Jason. I've already got the address. It's already on the sheet. So
On the
you
sheet.
just need to go in there and
Dish it out.
give it the old look.
All right.
Give the old lookaroo.
So what are you thinking about this week? The Sharks wrap up their season-long six-game road trip this week. Games against the Islanders, Red Wings, culminating at Vegas next Sunday. So I have 2 questions, of course. The game finishes in Vegas next Sunday. Will Jerk be here next Sunday?
Still to be determined.
Still to be determined. Wow. Okay, so that's okay. So that pisses out the fire on the other question I had. So you know what that means? There's going to be another Pucknologist takeover of After Dark yet again. A little bit on the late side because if I do recall, the Vegas game versus the Sharks next Sunday starts at 7 p.m. Pacific, which is usually when we go on. Not the case. So we'll be on immediately following the game. So we're not sure if the Jerkman going to be here, but I do need to know if we're going to be announcing a contest winner for next week. What, in fact, will they win when it comes to the question? What are we doing? I'm gonna let you take this one. I feel like I've kind of piled on for the last few weeks. It's time for you to pull one out.
Okay, and so I've got just
3 games. 3 games,
right.
all on the road.
So just so we know we've done power plays, or I'm sorry, power plays.
We've done total time on the power play.
We've done combined save percentage. We've done combined shots for, combined shots against, combined block shots,
shot saved, goals
time,
allowed, face-off win percentage. There's all sorts of shit.
Yeah, I think if I had more confidence in Nico Sturm's health, I think his face-off percentage might have been a fun one to do.
Actually, no, we have that on in our back pocket. We haven't done it yet, but yeah.
But
for all we know, Sturm might play on Tuesday.
Right, and there's I would hate to say that's going to be it, and then he doesn't play. You know what I mean?
Well, but that's the chance you take, my friend.
Yeah, the closest person to 0, I guess, would win, right?
Oh, dude, I was literally thinking about that earlier, where I was just kind of like, it would be a really fun one to do this week. Total time on ice for Mark Edward Vlasic, and it was like $1.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but I do think I do kind of like your thought process because of the log jam at defense, right?
Ooh,
Can I throw something
out? Can I throw something out? Can I throw something out at you? Just
sure.
You can take it into account if you want to use it. You can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Over the next 3 games, which defenseman has total time on ice?
That's what I was thinking, because we talked about Addison, so I was thinking Addison time on ice.
Yeah, like Ferraro seems like but that's the whole thing, is that if we say which defenseman, they literally only have to choose, let's be honest, one of 6, maybe one of 7.
It needs to be somebody, it has to be one of the guys in the middle, right? A Burrows, a Burrows, if he wasn't hurt, in Emberson. I would say either a Burrows or an Addison or an Ahotiuk, where his average ice time per game is kind of a moving target, and so you really have to think about it.
You
'Cause
know
there
what?
could
I
be-
like
'cause think about it.
I like total time on ice for a Kokchuk.
Because think about it, like there could be a game where Ohotiuk gets 12 minutes, there could be a game where he gets 19. So
Yeah.
how do you reconcile that, you know?
All right. Well, you got to pick one, bro, so we can announce it.
Total time on ice, I would say, because again, power play penalty kill factors in as well.
Yeah.
Total time on ice for Kalen Addison. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Time on ice. Kalen Addison over the next 3 games that come against the Islanders. What's the other team they're playing?
Islanders, Red Wings, and Golden Knights.
Oh, that's right. The Islanders, Red Wings, and Golden Knights. We're putting this out right now, December 3rd. So this coming week, time on ice for Addison, Islanders, Red Wings, Golden Knights. Your answers must be in before the puck drops on Long Island versus the Islanders on Tuesday.
Yep.
So there you go. Total time on ice for Addison. Again, for those of you who have previously won, haven't received your prizes yet, they are shipping out this week. And, give it a day or two because it is the silly season. The post office is overrun. So just letting you know. The other thing that needs to be taken into account is the bet, which right now still remains the same. You're at 2 because those games are at home where they have to hand out tacos. There are no tacos to be given away on the road.
Unfortunately.
But I have to say, over these last 6 games, I feel like I'm going to get hosed. So once again, the Sharks are going to wrap up this season-long 6-game roadie this week. Games on the Isle, games in Detroit, and finishing up at Vegas. Might Jerk head to the Vegas game to give the Sharks the bump? We don't know. We will all find out following Sharks versus Golden Knights next Sunday. The one thing I wanted to do, though, is I wanted to give a quick shout-out to Jewels. We love Jewels. Can't say enough good things about Jewels. But apparently I can say enough good things because there was a discussion during the Discord. And again, you want to get on the Discord, hit up hockey_jerk on the Twitter. But I told Jewels in the Discord, I'm like, you know what? You're a badass. I dig that about you because you're a badass. And her response to me was, I'm sorry, I don't take compliments from people who aren't badass. And I was like, okay, so let me just tuck this between my legs and I'll see myself out. Dude, it just goes to show you what happens on the Discord. So on Twitter, you can find him at hockey_jerk. You can follow me, but don't worry about it. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave your take in the comments section of this video. If you were not able to join us live, remember, follow us on that YouTube channel. We certainly appreciate it. And again, if you can't follow us live, hey, all this stuff's always on repeat. You can go back and listen to it at your leisure. That is a beautiful thing about podcasts. So, Jerkman, I will leave it to you at this point. 200 shows. Felt like it was a good one. Okay, then. No, I feel okay.
This is what's really exciting for me.
Oh, shit.
Is we're done and it's early. I can have dinner at a normal time. I can watch a movie with my wife.
You're right. We'd only be halfway through right now on a usual night.
I'm ready to fire it up.
Or you're already you're looking at next Sunday going, fuck. I have to go to the game because I'm not going to midnight. Sound about right? Dude, we're hosed this month. The only time we're not doing a takeover is Christmas Eve or whatever. If Christmas was on a Thursday, we would have been hosed the entire month.
Right.
I feel like it. Oh, Ramon coming in hot. Love it. My wife. Yeah. That was for our fans on the Reddit. So, with that, I will just say I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your evening tonight, and we're going to catch you next week after the Sharks finish up this ridiculously long road trip. And again, we're all going to be surprised who's joining me next Sunday night following Sharks versus Vegas. Have a great Sunday and an end to your weekend, everybody. Good night.